Okay, so welcome everybody to our meeting. Rabbi Kara Tav is going to talk to us this evening on a very interesting subject. Kara volunteers on our chaplaincy department, which is our spiritual care department, which is an innovative idea, which is taking off very slowly. But it's something that I know some of you have already referred callers to. And it's really well worth knowing about our spiritual care team because they can offer things that, as therapists or helpliners, that goes that extra mile. It connects with them in a different sort of a way to the way that we connect. So we can talk about that later on if that's what you'd like to do. But meanwhile, I would like to ask Kara to kind of give us over her talk. Thank you, Kara.
Very good. Thanks, Susan. So, friends, this little talk I'm going to aim for it to be somewhat conversational rather than a frontal presentation. But in order for us to do that effectively, especially because we're on Zoom, we'll need to be careful with when we mute and when we unmute. So in a minute, I will ask everyone to unmute themselves so that we can do some quick introductions. And then after you've introduced yourself, I'll ask you to remute. And then I'll do a little more introduction and then we'll move forward. Is that good with everyone?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So I can't say who should go first because my order is probably different than all of yours. So if everyone will unmute and then unless you have a lot of noise in your background, please unmute. And then
I hope she got the email. I sent it to her. I sent it to Adriana.
So if someone would, you know what, I'll begin with my introduction and we'll take it from there. I'm Rabbi Kara Tav. You already heard that. I'm a board certified chaplain and I'm a very early volunteer with Tikva. I've been with Tikva quite a while. I'm hoping this talk can offer two things. One, an idea of how spiritual care manifests differently on the Tikva line than a purely psychotherapeutic voice. And second, to offer a sort of a deepening perspective on making Aliyah and the complicated combination of immigration and migration that it is. So that's me. Is there someone who'd like to go next? Sure, Hannah.
I'm Hannah Fruman. I've been in TIC for a couple of years. I love the work. I love the team. I'm a marital and family counselor and a narrative therapist. And I had a very harsh experience making Aliyah. There was a great deal of loss. So when I heard your topic, I thought, wow, that's very touching to me.
Good. Oh, I'm glad I hit your mark there, Hannah.
Yeah.
All right, I'll ask you to mute yourself, and then if someone else could go next.
I will.
Sure. Thanks, Judith.
I'm going to suggest, why don't we each call on the next person if you all don't mind being called out? Just that way we don't have to even volunteer. So I am Judith Shagrin. I am part of the TICFA Baltimore contingency. And I'm actually a retired child welfare wonk, but with a lot of experience on crisis lines and responding to crises. And I've just really enjoyed this opportunity as part of my retirement plan. And I'm going to call on Erica as the other part of our Baltimore contingency.
Thanks, Judith.
Well, thanks, Judith. My name is Erica Weinstein, and I am a new member of the TICFA line. And I'm in private practice in Baltimore, Maryland, as Judith mentioned. I've been in private practice for about 12 or 13 years, and I've been a therapist for over 25. And Judith and I just met in person recently, and that was really lovely. So I'm looking forward to the talk today and just being part of the group that's over in on the East Coast in the US.
Thanks, Erica. Will you
Thank
call on
you.
someone else?
Oh, I can't see the list.
All right,
Hold
I'll take
on.
it for you. Jackie, why don't you go next?
Thanks.
Okay, so hi, I'm Jackie Galgut. I'm a social worker living in Renana. I've been with the TICFA helpline since it started, and I also volunteer on the mental health side. I'm a maritime family therapist, and I do trauma. I work a lot with clients. I live in Renana, so I get a lot of Olim Chadashim coming and struggling with making Aliyah. I also didn't have a very easy Aliyah, but that was already 20 years ago, so I'm kind of settled now. But yeah, I do a lot of work with
I'm just getting a
Olim.
pen. I'm right here.
Okay, so yes, I don't know who, can't see who else is next. Sorry, so yeah, so I don't know who's next. I can't see.
How about Dawn? Will you go next?
I'm Dawn Goldstein, and I am actually a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner and professor at Michigan State University. And so I'm in Michigan in the United States. And I started several months ago. I would say probably maybe it was last April, May, with the Tikva helpline. I met Suzanne at a function in Virginia, and that's what got me interested. And then I also merged into doing the marketing. I'm on the marketing group, and now I've moved mostly the marketing and the mental health program. And I've got a couple of individuals that I do individual therapy with. I also have my own clinic that I see patients out of, in addition to teaching full time.
Wow.
So thank you.
Busy. Sure. Dawn, you want to call on someone else?
Yeah. How about Alexandra?
Alexandra?
Unmute.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Hi.
Sorry about that. I'm very bad with this. My name is Alexandra Petru. I'm currently live in New York City. I'm originally from Greece. I'm a clinical psychology. I have a private practice in New York City. I work mostly with adults and older adults. I work a lot with trauma, depression, and I would love to come to Israel, make Aliyah, but it's so expensive there. How do you all live there? It seems so expensive. It's so difficult. But I would love to do that one day, and I'm glad to be part of this talk. Thank you.
Good God, New York City is ungodly expensive. Just saying.
So, Alexandra, would you like to call on to go next?
I'll call Leslie.
Leslie.
I've been a multi-faith chaplain for 25 years in 3 different hospitals. And like Kara, I was running our spiritual care department at Columbia Presbyterian. I did not know that she had joined, and I was very happy to see that because other 2008. But I was TICFA since January of 2024, and I'm on the administration team. And I will call on Rabbi Ziona Zalazo.
Hi. My name is Rabbi Ziona Zalazo. I live in New Jersey. I joined Tikva, but I've been kind of silent for a long time because of my life directions and all what's happening on my side. I do plan to stay and continue coming back to be on the call. I work in Valley Hospital in New Jersey as a associate chaplain. I'm a spiritual care provider for the American Red Cross. Together with Judith and I met on few missions and deployment. And I'm just rabbiing, so my life is good and busy, but hope to see you soon again.
Will you call on someone?
It's hard for me to see. I don't remember who talked and who didn't.
All right, Sienna, I'll do it. We haven't heard from Jillian yet.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm really not good on this thing. I can't even see my picture here. I live in Australia. It's 3 a.m. At the moment. I'm a clinical psych. I work in the in the jail sector for a long time. I'm in private practice. I've been a therapist for, I don't know, about 30 years or more. And I love being part of Tikva, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Jillian.
Thank you.
Can you see someone to call on?
Just let me put on glasses so I can see the names. I will call on Susan F. Hi.
Susan F.
Okay, hi. I live in Yerushalayim. I joined Tikva way back in October 23, back in the old country. Guess where that was? I was a bereavement counsellor, and just recently I remembered that I used to facilitate groups of spouses of Holocaust survivors. And that's me.
Wow, lovely. Thank you. Will you choose someone, Susan?
Has Helga spoken yet? Hi, Helga. You spoken yet?
Helga? Helga, can you hear us? Helga?
Maybe just move till somebody else comes.
Bathroom break.
Right. Okay. So let's do Avital.
Well, sorry. Hi, how are you, everyone? I apologize. I'm not on video for where I am. I can't be. But I'm a social worker here in Israel. I live in Nahariya. I made Aliyah it's going to be 4 years in August. And I've been with Tikva pretty much from the get-go on the helpline side, and I'm part of the admin team. And I work also on the mental health side as well with some clients. Thank you for this, and we're looking forward to hearing all about it.
Thanks. Avital, do you want to call on someone or shall I?
Oh, yeah, sure. Adrian, please go ahead.
I thought you would do that. Hi, everyone. I'm Adrienne Sheff, and I've been with Tikva since day one, October 8th, possibly even the 7th. I don't remember. I do shifts. I volunteer. I volunteer for shifts. I'm on the admin team. I've been a director of a mental health center for many years. That was in the States. I've been retired for about 7 years. I made Aliyah 3 years ago, and I also had a very difficult landing. After many, many times of being in Israel, thinking it was going to be an easy landing, and it didn't turn out to be, but now it's wonderful. And so I definitely understand going through that process, and looking forward to hearing the rest of the talk.
Thanks, Adrian. Do you want to choose someone else?
I can't really see either, so maybe you could go ahead.
Sure. Let's see, Sharon.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
My name is Sharon Ross. I live in Karnei Shalom. I have been with Tikva since last summer. Baruch Hashem. I'm also on the support line and also on the therapist side, and it's been great. I find it to be like this family and supportive and trainings and helped me to get more experience. I'm on the new side of being a therapist, and I love that. And it's given me confidence. I see women, wide range of ages, trauma, like all kinds of different relational stuff, like relational trauma and relationships, like singles that are looking to get married people struggling in their marriage, and daughter, mother, kind of, like child parent stuff, like sandwich generation, like elderly parents. Also, a senior citizen herself, like she's the mother, she's the older person struggling with, getting towards the end of life and assisted living, decision to maybe move there. Anyway, I really loved it, like I said, and I'm not sure what else I'm supposed to say.
That was
I made Aliyah over 25 years ago when I was single, and I think that is honestly the easiest, least traumatic way of coming. It is coming alone. It is scary, but I had so much hashgacha prati, like with it, like meaning like I just felt like Hashem was really just there to guide me, and it was just every step of the way I felt like I got what I needed to help me along the way. So it was obviously a huge step, probably one of the best things that I did in my life. Yeah.
Thank you.
Dream come true.
Dream come true. I love that. Will you choose someone for it?
And it's so important what you're talking about, because I've countless people, I don't even know how many, like I just, I talk to, because like all my clients, like it doesn't come out even so much my clients, but like friends and people I know and whatever, there's so much struggle out there, and it exasperates what already existed. And sometimes it also is new things, like that didn't exist before. And then when people are dealing with things that are even new, so make Aliyah and all the changes on top of that is just extremely hard.
Yeah,
so
thank you very much. It's so true. Choose someone else for us to do an introduction.
Okay. Who didn't go? Did Susan Cohen make her introduction? I would assume so.
Yeah, she did.
Who didn't make?
So
Yeah. Sorry, I was like busy with supper and stuff.
Batsheva.
Hi.
Okay.
Hi, thank you. My name is Batsheva von Wazel. I'm Israeli, grew up in Israel, and currently live in England, in Leeds. I joined Tikva Line around 3 or 4 months ago, and I'm part of the regular volunteer in the support line. Very, very happy to be part of this amazing organization, and yeah, looking forward to hear your talk. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. So have we gotten everyone?
Helga didn't. Helga, are you there? Rachel, did you? Have we heard from you, Rachel? I didn't think so. Rachel hasn't been.
Oh,
no.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi. My name is Rochelle Kaufman. My Hebrew name is Rachel. I have absolutely no experience in therapy. My experience is in life and relationships in life, and different mindfulness and consciousness protocols and meditation. And I've been supported by Abital and here in Naharia. I made Aliyah in 2019. And I just love it here. You can make yourself into whoever you want to make yourself into, and give back in any way you want to give back. So I enjoy talking to people and listening to what they have to say and trying to think of ways of helping them.
Amazing.
That's what I do.
Wow, thank you so much. So I'll ask that someone, maybe Susan, will you keep an eye out for Helga so that when she comes we can just...
Yeah, I keep asking her to unmute, but she's not in. But when she does come back in, we'll see what happens.
I've just sent her a WhatsApp.
Oh,
Very
okay.
good.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Sorry. Okay, I'm going to begin, and then we'll see if Helga can unmute herself. Then we will take a minute to hear who she is and what she's doing with us today. So the first thing I want to talk about is immigration and migration. And I want to talk about that for obvious reasons. We're dealing with people who've made Aliyah, and or we are people who've made Aliyah ourselves. But so let's just start there. And I will say that I want to start with migration. Is there anyone who could say in like 3 sentences what migration means, what that is? Rochelle. Oh, I thought you were raising your hand. Is there someone who could tell us about migration?
Moving to a place, like meaning like how birds go in different seasons and
Oh,
migrate.
Sharon, that's so great because that's excellent. If you'll mute yourself. I did look up the definitions just in case I didn't know. And in fact, they begin with a definition that has to do with wildlife. And migration is bemet about moving from place to place. When we talk about people, we talk about people moving from place to place. That could mean, I mean, I technically have migrated like, 6 or 8 times. I've lived in several different cities. I've lived on different continents. I've made Aliyah. So I've lived in different places, and to each one of those, I migrated. So immigration, does anyone have a sense of the difference between those things?
An immigrant is somebody who moves from one country to another and it makes their life in that country.
That's right. It's sort of an intentional act, Susan, of moving to a new place and staying there.
Exactly.
So the action is to live there permanently. So migration is the story of the Jewish people, right? I mean, like from the Torah until, all of the like countless resettlings and settlings across the world through the generations until today, until, we migrate inside where we are or we immigrate permanently to a place. And in our case, we're talking about people who immigrate particularly to Israel. For the sake of our talk, I'm going to call moving to Israel immigration. Aliyah is a loaded expression. It is a word that means to go up. I imagine I'm not saying this is not new information to most of you, but and in ascending and going up, there's an implication that moving to Israel is better. You're making a better choice for yourself. Now, if you're me, I used to live in New York City and then I moved to Pittsburgh. So in my mind, Pittsburgh was a much better place for me to live than New York. But I would never say that I made Aliyah to Pittsburgh. Aliyah is reserved for moving to Israel, and it's a loaded expression. And so for today, or for at least the next little while, I want to refer to what we do as immigrating. So just by show of hands, are there people on the screen right now who have migrated? I can't see.
Nobody. Oh,
so
yeah.
Some of you, yeah, most of them actually. I mean, some people don't have their cameras on, but for those of you, thank you. For those of you who have your cameras on, you have migrated. And of those, are there people who have immigrated, moved somewhere and to stay there? Okay, that's most of us. Most of us. So
may I try to insert the point of the differences?
Yes,
From
sure.
my understanding, if you migrate, you're not obligated to take upon citizenship
That's right.
or take any other responsibilities.
That's right.
In
You
the
might
new
move.
country.
That's right. You might be moving from New York to Pittsburgh.
But you
And
can
then-
also migrate to Israel without taking any part in voting or anything like that.
That's
But
correct.
if you're an immigrant, you are required to become a citizen and take part of all. That's I'm not sure, but I'm just thinking.
Yeah, well, that's sort of a complicated political statement, right? Because there are people who move to the United States with no intention of leaving, but they're not eligible to vote, or they don't like complete the process of full immigration. And so like I'm not
So they're not immigrants. So are they immigrants or migrants?
Well, they're immigrants because they intend to stay.
Oh.
They're coming there, not playing.
Okay. I just want to bring it to the table because I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's a good
You were
question.
also asking us if we migrated, that means that we maybe perhaps moved from place to place, like rented, either in the same city or in a different city, whether it was in America or whether it was within Israel.
For sure.
And if it's
or
immigrate,
within
then
Australia
like
or
moving,
within anywhere else, right, Sharon?
right. Right, exactly. Sorry. Anywhere in the world within the same country, within the same whatever it is, or even
to a
just
different
floating
country.
around. And if we immigrated, then we feel like if we raise our hands for immigrating, then that means that we've moved specifically to the neighborhood that we intend to stay.
That's right. There's a
wherever that may be.
to stay, correct. So
okay.
So this is just like a little insignificant tidbit, but it's something new I learned when I was doing research to talk today, and I was totally blown away. I don't know if you can see behind me, I really love plants, and I have many different varieties of plants that I, until 2 days ago, or until maybe Thursday, would have called a wandering Jew. I mean, has anyone heard of the wandering Jew?
Of course, I've had one for 40 years.
That's right. So guess what?
Uh-oh.
I learned in my research that the expression or the nickname, a wandering Jew, is the name we give a plant called the inch plant, like not the centimeter, but the inch. And the name came from an anti-Semitic trope. What? It was derived from a myth from the Apocrypha about a man who was cursed to wander the earth because that man taunted Jesus on Jesus's way to the crucifixion. I mean, I just had to share this with you because I just thought it was. I know, it was fascinating.
But what are we supposed to call that?
They're called the inch plant.
The one that I've been calling my wandering Jew all these years?
Yeah, me too. Can you imagine? So I want to look at the gifts and the challenges of immigration through a spiritual lens. Now, when I say that, what do I mean? I mean that, well, I mean a few things. Right now, I mean two things. One, that when we look at something through a spiritual lens, we are framing the concept through the idea of hope, or through the idea of making meaning. Those are sort of two core philosophies, or like grounding principles in spiritual care, that we look for the part of the story that has hope, or we help the person who's telling the story to find hope in that story, or to make meaning of their story in some way. So that is, that's what it means right now for me to say that I want to look at the pluses and minuses, if you will, of immigrating through a spiritual lens. I think that a chaplain can help us to recognize and accept the dissonance in our stories. So in the example of making Aliyah, as many of you said, it was a really, really rough transition. It was not easy. It was not pretty. But now you're very glad. But that didn't take away from the fact that there was a lot of, there were a lot of losses in getting to the point where you feel like things are working. So a chaplain can help you to see your story and engage with your own story from a place where you can hold it was really brutal, if I may. My Aliyah was not really brutal, but I do know people who really struggled. And so there's like the struggle and the pleasure of it becoming a life that you feel is positive and was a successful choice. So the way I thought about moving through this talk was like to sort of unpack the title. I mean, the title of this talk is very, very long. And so what I thought was that I could simply go through the pieces of the talk, losses that we have experienced through immigration, a Jewish spiritual perspective. Okay, so wait, do we have questions at this point? Are there things people need to know before I move on?
Helga's joined us.
Yeah, Susan?
Helga's joined us.
Oh. Helga, hi.
Oh, we're not sure. I'm not sure it works because the camera isn't working. But anyway, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great.
Do you want to tell us? Do you want to tell us where you are and how you can?
Okay. I live in Jerusalem. I made Aliyah from England over 30 years ago. Wasn't easy either. And I've been through a couple of professions since. I'm very new to Tikva. I just joined a month ago. So had my first call today.
Wow, Mazal Tov. I know that's a big thing.
I'm still thinking about it.
I'll bet you are. I'll bet you are.
Anyway, nice to join you.
Very good. Thank you. So where am I? I'm going to work through the title of our talk. Losses that we have experienced through immigration, a Jewish spiritual perspective. So let's start with losses. I particularly want to talk about ambiguous loss. When I was thinking about this talk, I was thinking about the ambiguous losses that we experience in any type of migration or immigration. So ambiguous loss is a concept that Dr. Pauline Boss brought to the psychotherapeutic world in like early 1970s. And this refers to losses that are, now I'm sure that this is going to feel familiar to you when I go through this list. These are types of losses that are unclear, undefined, or unresolved. And ambiguous loss leads to confusion, anxiety, and prolonged grief. Ambiguous loss can stem from various situations. These are Dr. Boss's words. It can stem from various situations, such as the disappearance of a loved one, the cognitive decline of a person, or the loss of contact or experience due to events like war or immigration. It's in her first sentence. Dr. Boss's research on ambiguous loss highlights the unique psychological and emotional challenges associated with these particular types of losses. Now, what's the difference between ambiguous loss and, for lack of a better expression, ordinary loss? The difference basically is you can't put your finger on it. Ambiguous loss is something that's difficult to put your finger on. So my father died. My father of blessed memory died, but I know that he died. I have a death certificate. I went to a funeral and a shiva, and I know that he died. Now, if there is no certainty that someone is lost, like we use the expression loss as in I lost my father, which is tricky, right? Because if we say um, I'm trying to think of a good example, maybe like a prisoner of war. Right now we're talking about the chatufim a lot, the people, the hostages. So in some ways, the hostages, the families of the hostages, the families that are shkulim, they are experiencing brutal, ambiguous loss because they're not positive. They're not positive that their loved one is gone. They won't believe it until they see it, understandably. But that this period of they haven't seen them in 570 something, I can't remember the number of days, means that they've been living with this like extended and what's this word?
It's uncertainty.
Yeah, well, it's not, it is uncertain, but
In this example, it's uncertainty, but
yeah, but it's
in this example, uncertainty is a word that describes ambiguous loss, but it's a particular type of loss where you're just not sure.
Clear. Yeah, it's not clear. I think that a big thing that is very, very, very hard for people when they're struggling with aliyah. Yeah.
I would be more than happy for you to participate. I'm glad to hear what you have to say, but I need you to let us know you're going to talk because I don't want people to.
Yeah. Okay. So is it a?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Can I just
okay.
use the
sure.
Just put, if you look at the bottom of the screen, it says react. If you wish to talk, use one of the icons in there, either a hand or the thumbs up, and then we'll know. Kara will then know that you would like to talk. It says raise hand as well. It's just easier. Okay. So it's participants chat, then it says react. It's a love heart. If you click on there, the icons are there to be able to act it. Okay.
Okay. I'm also okay with Susan. I'm okay with people raising their hand.
Oh, okay.
Just so long as you don't speak before you raise your hand, so that we can call on you, and then we don't interrupt each other. So Sharon, you were going to say something.
Yeah. So I think that a huge thing that's extremely difficult for many people, that when they make aliyah, they're struggling. There's a guilt element in it because they tried so hard and did so much effort to come and immigrate to this country, and they call it aliyah, whatever it is, and it's like, in many cases, obviously their dream and something that they wanted. So it's like, how could I possibly be having such a hard time? Why do I feel depressed? Why do I feel lonely? Why do I feel this? Why do I feel that? They don't feel like it's okay to feel like that. They don't.
So Sharon, you're describing is exactly the reason that we're doing this talk.
No, that's exactly my point. My point is that I'm describing, that's why it's ambiguous, because they don't understand that they're grieving the loss of what they left.
You know, that's kind of true. It's kind of true that we leave things behind, and when we move, when we immigrate. But what I'm getting at is, well, I'm not really there yet, because I think it's more than just, I mean, ambiguous loss can result in feelings of guilt. There's no question. But I just want to like move us a little more slowly, because you said a lot of really important things, and those things they build on one another. So when we talk about caring for people who are struggling with ambiguous loss, let me see. I want to make sure that so when we talk about, you know what, I want to do some examples first, some examples of ambiguous loss that aren't immigration. Can anyone think of an experience or something in your life or in someone else's life that created a sense of ambiguous loss? Leslie, are you raising your hand? Tell me.
Yes, if somebody becomes mentally disabled. And
right.
With my sister, Oleha Shalom, and she was moving there through 30 years. She was in and out of a horrible paranoid schizophrenia. So lost her when she was sick, and then I gained her back, but I never knew when it was going to happen.
That's right. That's a beautiful example. And I'm sorry for your loss. Judith, I see your hand is up.
Yes, and I'm not on camera because I'm walking on my treadmill. Double. But in child welfare, we describe the separation of a child from their parent as an ambiguous loss for that parent. Nobody says, "Oh, I'm so sorry for you," or sends sympathy cards. Yet, as you're describing, it represents an enormous loss and triggers a sense of grief. But it's not. It's ambiguous because it's ambiguous. Are they the child or not? Someone else has assumed legal custody.
Right, right. That's actually a beautiful example. So true. Yeah, Adrienne, I see your hand up. No, you're on mute. Unmute yourself, love. There she goes. No, you're muted.
Is that better?
Yep, perfect.
Watching a close relative through the dying process, a protracted dying process, where you don't,
right?
It's like they're here, but they're here.
Yeah, that's a really nice and clear way to say it. Someone's here and not here. Susan, are you gonna add to that?
Alzheimer's is an ambiguous loss because the person is present, their mind isn't, and it's one of those horrible situations.
Right. That's exactly right.
Diagnosed with a terminal illness, like someone's got stage 4 and you're preparing for that loss because it can no longer be viable. It's going to happen, but when is it going to happen? And that kind of puts you in a very strange position.
Strange and strained. I thought you were going to say strained, right? Because there's this like, should I say goodbye today? Should I wait till tomorrow? What if I miss it? It's just like, it's like Adrienne's example of someone at the end of their life. You just don't know. Yeah. Okay, let's move forward. So we have I have some little guidelines that I hold my whatever toolbox notebook when I'm dealing with someone whose ambiguous loss I sense. And those, I'm going to share those with you. You can tell me you think they're ridiculous. You can tell me you think they're terrific. You cannot tell me anything about them, but I'm going to give them to you anyway. And I help them to find meaning in the loss. I help them to adjust. I call it adjusting mastery, which basically means I help them to to describe this loss and to call it a loss. And then to reconstruct their identity. My mother developed Alzheimer's disease, and then after many years, she died. And now I am a person who, and then they can fill in the blank, right? I have normalizing ambivalence, which is an interesting, that took me a while to formulate into words that I could share with you, but there's something about, who was it who said it? Maybe it was Adrienne, I'm not sure, who said something about, it's not exact, she didn't use the word ambivalence, but there's this well, they're gonna die, right? I mean, they're in the dying process. It could be today, could be tomorrow, it could be in a week. So there's okay, so they're gonna die, fine, they're gonna, but it's an important part of my job when I'm dealing with someone who is experiencing this type of loss, to help them to normalize that Like, of course, it's confusing, and you're right. It makes sense that they're ambivalent about when they're going to go and what it's going to mean. And even though when they die, it's going to be very sad, just the way it would have been if it would have happened, 2 days after they got sick. There's an ambivalence to it until it happens. Adrian, I see your hand up.
Yeah, and sometimes, you're actually praying for the person to leave.
Oh, yes.
So that's
Oh,
a
yes.
very interesting dichotomy, that you don't want them to leave, it's a horrible situation, but you're also praying for them because it's a more peaceful ending.
Well, that's right. And what you're just saying is really like it encapsulates the last two things in my toolbox. And those are discovering new hope. So I feel terrible that my mother is at the end of her life and that this ending is, dying is hard work. This ending is taking a long time. She is suffering, but I hope that she goes peacefully and that I can move forward. So there's like a discovering a new hope in the story. Not, I hope that she's going to get better, but I hope that she dies peacefully and I can move on. And there's a revising of the attachment. She's still my mom. I'm still as connected to her today as I was yesterday, but maybe my attachment to her will change. Maybe it will grow. Maybe it will become, it will surely become different. If for no other reason, I'm not going to be able to talk to her every day, or I'm not be able to hear her responses every day when I talk to her. So those are like my little, those are the things in my toolbox when I think about ambiguous loss. So did I just want to make sense? Okay. The last thing is something that I did not know or think about before I was working on this particular talk. And that is that this is Boss who says this. Dr. Boss says, differently than other DSM-5 diagnoses, in order to spot ambiguous loss, one has to acknowledge one's own ambiguous loss and tackle how that has affected us or influenced us. Just think about that for a minute. I was sort of struck by this because, I'm a counselor and I have counseled, couples who are getting married, and I've coupled people who are, I don't know, getting divorced, say. I'm like, I'm happily married and I'm not getting divorced. I don't see it in the future. And so I can counsel them with the skills I have, with the diagnoses they have, even though I've never experienced divorce. But that's different than this situation with ambiguous loss. Not because you can't recognize it exactly, but it's really complicated to like both recognize and treat it if you haven't dealt with your own ambiguous losses and like looked at how they have influenced you. Because it's so subtle, because ambiguous loss is sort of an amorphous thing. And when I read this, I was like, that's very interesting and very true. So I want to share that with you. If anyone has any thoughts about that, I'd love to know what you think. Leslie, did you raise your hand?
I was wondering if you could give a couple of examples of someone who was trying to spot it in themselves. I'm thinking for myself what it would be, but I'm trying to expand out what else could be a place where you're trying to own it so that then you can understand your loved, whomever it is.
Right. That's good. Let me think. Because like, okay, I'll talk about my own Aliyah. I made Aliyah as a young, I was just finished graduate school. I was full of excitement and hope and pleasure, and everything was just like sunshine and falafel, And then I I realized that those posters I was reading in the Sochnut office, Bet ze Bait. I'm like, wow, that is totally not true. No one in this country gives a darn that I'm coming here. They couldn't care less. In fact, most people I meet, they ask me if I'm crazy. What am I thinking about? Why would I do such a thing? So I had to really struggle with that because it's not that I couldn't understand the question. I see your hand, Sharon, one sec. It's not that I couldn't it's not that I couldn't understand their question, but I was like, at first, my response was, no, I'm sunshine and falafel. I'm good. I've got a job. I'm paying the rent. I'm fine. I've got a boyfriend. I'm like, things are working for me. And it was really hard for me to, hold on to the loss of living in Canada, having a car and a driver's license and a family and a social network and like having to just start that all over again. I mean, it was a brutal reality that I had to like let go of those posters at the Sochnut, and it was not a simple process. But doing that has always served me well. So that's an example. Wait, Leslie, do you have more? No? Okay. So Sharon, I see your hand.
I originally I wanted to ask you, can you repeat what you said, like the exact sentence, and also
Wait, which
the first,
sentence?
the sentence that we're talking about, like how you need to face your own
Yeah,
in
sure.
order to.
Sure. So the sentence reads like this. Dr. Boss claims that differently than other DSM-5 psychological diagnoses, that in order to spot and treat ambiguous loss, one has to have acknowledged their own ambiguous losses and tackled how those influenced our lives and affect us.
Okay, so my question, like in attachment to that, is or maybe my comment, so I think the reason why that's different than needing to have a particular illness is that if we tackle our own losses, like if we recognize where we struggled, where we lost, then we're in a better mental state, like we worked on ourselves, as opposed to we don't need a sickness, we don't need a specific whatever mental illness or specific experience like to treat something, but we need to in general be able to work on ourselves and like grow through challenges in order to help the person in front of us. But I guess it is very powerful, the statement, because it really is saying like to be able to help someone with ambiguous losses, like to understand really what an ambiguous loss is.
Right.
Is we need to face our own.
That's right, Sharon. And I'm gonna tweak a little bit what you said and add to it.
Yes, please.
I would tweak a little bit what you said by saying that it's not about I had this and so I can see it in you. It's more it's a little softer than that. It's a little less concrete than that. It's more of a once you've seen and identified your own experience with ambiguous, like you have to be able to say, I have had ambiguous loss. If you asked my brother, have you ever experienced ambiguous loss? He would say, of course not. Okay, but that's like, even from a distance, I can say that's 100% not true. And so in his practice as a family doctor, I would say that it's going to be very, very hard, almost impossible for him to pick up someone else's ambiguous loss because it's this very subtle difference between this happened. I made Aliyah, and so I had to learn a new language, and I don't speak English all the time. And calling it an ambiguous, I lost my mother tongue. And even though I'm very articulate in my mother tongue, I'm still not a perfect Hebrew speaker. Do you understand can you feel the subtlety in that? It's not just first I only spoke English and now I speak Hebrew too. Cool, two languages, which is what my brother would probably say. I'm saying I used to be a very articulate and clear communicator in my language, and now I don't know if I can do the same kind of work because my language skills are just they're not gonna hold up. And so I lost that part of me in that process. Are you?
Yeah, I think so. And it is sort of what you clarified it more, but yeah. I wanted to also say like for example, you were asking for examples before, like divorce or like, like a family splitting, like some sort of split in the family is mamash like biggest loss. Like it's like they're not in contact, yes in contact, like it's just
Yeah, kind of, except that we could handle those as if they weren't ambiguous. First, they were an intact family, and now they are not, right? I mean, we could handle that as if it was very black and white, but this is something that's very gray.
But the people inside that family that are dealing with their loss, they're not going to be told, oh, so sorry for your loss. Even someone choosing a divorce goes through a major loss, and it's ambiguous because it's not so obvious. Like, okay, the actual divorce, okay, so it changed. It's mamash concrete. But let's just say, a cut off from like, the family, like a member, like some sort of like fight or, like not in touch, like a child and a parent or whatever it is. Like,
right. That's, yeah, exactly.
Some level of, yeah.
Good. Thank you. Okay, I'm aware of the time. I'm aiming to be finished by 2:30. Is that okay with everyone? Is everyone
2:30? What are we talking about? Oh, 9:30.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in the East Coast right now. 9:30. Susan?
I just want to say that this is something that on the mental health side we deal with every day. It's one of the most common elements that an oleh will bring to us. It's the loss of identity. I had a fantastic career in America and I'm a nothing over here. How can I establish myself? There's all sorts of things that we deal with within Kippulin to do with ambiguous loss. It's perhaps one of the largest aspects of an oleh making Aliyah to Israel. That sense of not knowing if they're sure, not sure if they're fitting in, sense of the loss of things in the hometown and whatever. So it actually is one of the biggest subjects that we actually get within our mental health program.
Yeah, that's right. So Susan, I'm glad you said that because it is without question a mental health, like it is without question a psychosocial, it's a psychotherapeutic concern and diagnosis, etc. The way that my chaplain ears hear it and the way that my skills would manage it is what we're gonna move into right now. But before we do that, I did a little bit of, this was just like my nerdy self. I just went down a little rabbit hole. And so when I said the Jewish people, we migrate, right? That is who we are. We are the inch plant or whatever it's called. We are the wandering Jew. I have to stop using that expression. Anyway, so all the way from Bereshit chapter 12, Vayomer Adonai el Avram, lech lecha ma'artzecha u'mimoladetcha u'mibet avicha el ha'aretz asher arecha. God said to Avram, go forth from your native land, from your ancestral land, and from your father's house to a land that I will show you. right? I mean, that's all about, this is in our mother's milk. This is in our bloodstream. And I needed to say that because the rabbit hole I went down, that nerdy rabbit hole I went down, was to take a list of all of the, now I couldn't do them, I had to look some of them up, but to think about all of the resettlings and settlings and resettlings and settlings that the Jewish people did across the world before there was a state of Israel. So if we started in 586 BCE, the destruction of the Second Temple, the destruction of the First Temple, and then 70 CE, the destruction of the Second Temple, and then like really Europe from like the 13th to the 15th or 16th century, we have England, 1290, France, 1394, and then various regions in Germany that like leading to migrations across Central and Eastern Europe. And then the Spanish expulsion, where was my family's first big move. And then Yemen, 1680, and then the Pale of Settlement, 1791. So the Russian Jews are exiled to the western edge of the Russian Empire. So by the late 19th century, this was an amazing number, over 4 million Jews live in the Pale of Settlement. And they come from all over, right? They have different languages, they have different experiences. And some of them chose to move, but most of them did not choose to move. Most of them had to move. They had to move for reasons of, there were many reasons that they had to move, but essentially everyone had to move. So there they were, 4,000. I mean, that's a lot of human beings to move, if you think about it, from across one nation into one small area. Not unlike Jews in the world moving to the land of Israel. So then we have the early Zionists, right? The sort of like late 1800s. So then like Jews from the Pale of Settlement and the Jews of Yemen, they emigrate to the Ottoman Palestine to escape pogroms, to escape persecution. The Jewish story. If I were talking to a room full of people where not everyone was Jewish, I would really have to explain this. But when I say to you the Jewish story, I can see you all going, mm-hmm. Right? It's like we don't think about it we think about it as who we are. We don't think about it as a troubling and uprooting and mostly debilitating process. So what is this story? This process of pain and confusion, what does it mean for us? I mean, even if you were moving to the Pale of Settlement, you might have been moving there because you would be able to have better work. But it's still the Pale of Settlement, and you're still surrounded by people who are oppressed in some way or another. And so the chaplain who cares for the Jew who's moved to the Ottoman Palestine in 1890 says, you have to be able to voice both of your truths and find hope or meaning in them. So what does that mean for us? For like our real selves and our clients, the people who call the Tikva line. So I get, before I say anything, I think that's like a big open question, but I would like to hear the ways that the people who are still with me have been, like, what they would say. Like, what do you think? What do you think the answer is to this? What does it mean for us to know that people are experiencing ambiguous loss and that they're making what they call aliyah? They're rising up. They're doing something better for themselves.
That in itself, sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
That in itself is a big debate, because sometimes people come to Israel thinking that this is their land of milk and honey, and everything is going to be a perfect dream. You know, all the problems they had back home are not going to follow them. And then all of a sudden they'll hit something and wham, they are hit broadside on and they start to tumble down. And that's where the danger lies, because people don't have a realistic picture of what it is to make Aliyah. Like you depicted before about the pictures on the wall in the Sochna office. A lot of Aliyah is fairy tale. It's a dream. It's like people want to go into the IDF. You know, it's the same kind of thing. But they don't realize that Israel is a hard country and it's a tough country. But at the same time, it's sweet and it's beautiful and it's our homeland and it can bring us so much nechama. But for those people who haven't thought or planned, you know, and there's plenty of them, it can be their nemesis. It can be their downfall. So it's these are the classic things that, you know, we're dealing with all the time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it really is. So I'm going to use that as a springboard and say, when we hear, you know, when we move to Israel, when we immigrate to anywhere, we lose really small things that we don't think of as significant.
Mm-hmm.
Like how we prepare dinner,
Mm-hmm.
grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
I will never forget my first month's experience in Israel at the grocery store. Like, what are all these white cheeses, people? Come on. What is this? And they're all called white cheese or yellow cheese. What? Right? I mean, so at the time, I was 20 and 22. I didn't think to myself that was a loss for me. I lost the familiar, not just the familiarity of the grocery store, but also like really what I'm going to eat and how I'm going to prepare it and how much I'm going to pay for it. Like these are like minuscule little losses that compound. So Susan, when you talk about the vision of milk and honey and the reality that it's so hard, I'm taking that down to like the micro. I'm saying I want to live in Israel and I want to cook I love Mediterranean food. I'm on a Mediterranean diet, right? But then I go to Israel and I'm in the grocery store and I'm like, what's going on? Like, how do I do this? What does it look like? This is nothing like the Mediterranean diet I've been eating for 15 years in my house, right? So that like those small things. I mean, I remember a Tikva client who was struggling with a lot of like a wide variety of complicated issues around her family and around, but really when we, in the depth of our conversation, what really came up is she used to love to cook and now she just doesn't get it. And there it is, right? I mean, once I said to her, well, why don't we look up recipes together and then we can, you know, we can make a list of the things that you want to buy in the grocery store, figure them out. And maybe you'll cook some food and invite your neighbor. And she was like, well, I really wanted to have a big party. I'm like, okay, let's just hold on to the big party. Let's just cook some food because I think it's going to ground you. I think it's going to make you feel like you're in your body, in your shoes, in your house. And you know what? She chose a recipe. She cooked some food and our conversation dramatically changed after that. And so I'm looking to hear or to sort of reinforce this idea that, so when I was talking about the grocery store with this woman, or no, it was a recipe, not the grocery store. She said, I thought you said that you're a rabbi and you do spiritual care. And I said, girlfriend, there is nothing more spiritual than having the right food at the right time. My apologies. Having the right food at the right time. Oh my, I've lost you. That's not good.
Yeah, we're all here.
Where are you? Where?
Go try
Here.
and find the oregano.
Yeah, that's right. So that's my right. So that's my story. That's my the process of experiencing losses in immigration, particularly to Israel through a Jewish spiritual lens. I wonder if you have questions or comments to make. Some of you, I have not heard your voices at all. Some of you, I've heard your voices a little bit.
I just want to try a little thing. I know when people say to me, "What do you miss most?" I go, "Oh, Trader Joe's."
Right. Yep. Leslie?
The whole last piece you've been talking about, I keep thinking of Herman Wouk's book, This Is My God. And he starts off with what you were just saying. We started here, went all over the world, and that process alone and of having the type of persecution and difficulties all along the way is why we are still the oldest people going.
Wow.
Now we could say that there are, let's say, Eastern other traditions, but they're not religions. So being that we are the oldest religion, and that his theory is that it really brings us all together to have suffered this throughout the millennia. I'm thinking about, like you said, there's the macro and then there's the cheese in the grocery store.
Yeah.
But I think it's very helpful to look at the big picture so that we don't get upset about the fact that this, that, or the other thing is happening in our Jewish life. I've experienced a lot of prejudice on both sides, and it just helps me to remember it's just the introduction to his book. That was it. That's it for me.
Wow. Beautiful. Thank you. Adrienne?
Yeah. One of the biggest things I've found, not only through my own experience, but through many people that I have spoken to, clients and friends included, is the sense of the loss of community. In America, for example, the shul is your whole world. It boils down to that. The synagogue or whatever your affiliations, your Jewish affiliations, is your community. And when you come here, going to the synagogue is not the same thing. It's not like everything happens in the synagogue. It's like it's all around. It's everywhere. Maybe the whole country is your community, but you still lost that little, the closeness of the individuals and the familiarity of the sense of community you had in your synagogue.
Yeah, thank you.
I've found that to be true with a lot of people that I've spoken with, including myself.
I think for young people here in Israel that have made Aliyah on their own, it's a sense of a loss of social networking, because they had in their community, they had a group of friends, or they may not have had a group of friends, but they had a familiarity with people. Whereas when they come here and they go to Jerusalem or Tel Aviv, it's sometimes very hard to find that sense of community. And that is a big problem amongst our younger Olim today, daft as it seems. The number of people are isolated and lonely because they have no sense of community. Language barriers, cultural backgrounds. It doesn't even have to be language. It could be cultural. You're from America and I'm from England, right? My culture, my background is different to yours. It has to be, right? I have more familiarity with Susan and with Bathsheba because she's living in my old hometown, right? So we have that connection because it's our old country. But it's difficult when you come and you don't find your niche. And it's very important that when people make Aliyah, that they find an area, a community where the language is similar, where the people are similar. Because if you don't, and you say, I'm going to steep myself into an Israeli community, and you don't speak Hebrew, you're finished. You've got no chance. You have no chance. Mm-hmm. So the absorption, which is part of the Aliyah, the absorption into the right kind of community for you, with the right kind of language, even if you don't live there forever, but to ground you is vitally important. So it's where you're absorbed into, as well as the Aliyah. It's the absorption that's really important.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more, Susan, although I would say a good way to learn a language is to immerse yourself in it. Yeah, I would say the only way to really learn a language is to be around people who are speaking your language, but that isn't what you were getting at. I
agree with you. I agree with you. You're not wrong, but it depends on your age as well, right? If you are 19, 20, 21 years old, fantastic, and you have an ability for language. If you make Aliyah as a more mature person, let's say late 50s, 60s, and 70s, that's where that barrier comes in, because it's hard for you to learn a language at that age. And it's hard for you there to communicate. And it becomes more of a struggle. You come here with a different presence in your mind. You come here to kind of, in your late 60s and 70s, you're coming here to retire. You're not coming to work. So you're better off in a community where people are like-minded. So you know that to settle down, if you want to knock on your next door neighbor's door, they're from America like you are, or they're from another country, but you have a commonality. This, in my opinion, from my experience over 5 years of working in Berlin, is the key to a successful Aliyah. And it's missed out by so many. It's missed. The Sochnut are to blame a lot, because they send people who are very unequipped to the north, right? They pull them in Afula. They'll put them in Haifa, where the sense of community there is not necessarily Anglo, but it's cheaper to live there, right? And not only is it cheaper, they encourage you to go there by giving you a more increased sal klita. So if you go down to the south, the same principle occurs. You get a higher sal klita package, but my gosh, you're a fish out of water. So there's a lot. It's a chemistry. It's a science. It's like making a cake. It's like making a cake. It's a pure science to a successful Aliyah.
Leslie, are you? Oh,
I've just been thinking about our call reports and just how many I am checking off. Loneliness, isolation. People don't know how to form a community. They don't know where to go to synagogue. They don't have any idea how to meet someone of the opposite sex. They're desperate.
Right.
So that's why I'm thinking this talk is so helpful, because we're getting an idea of what it is that people are struggling with.
Right.
We might get it as every time we talk to a volunteer, but to have them encapsulate, to have Susan come and bring all of her wisdom to bear on what we're doing, that's how it all comes together.
That's why a few weeks ago we did a pilot, a test on, we did a webinar. We just advertised it to see if anybody would attend. And a few people did attend, and it was on isolation and loneliness. And you know what? It was heartbreaking. It was a very heartbreaking group, because every one of them was lonely. Everyone felt isolated, desperate to meet other people. So that means that now that's going to be translated into support groups. We're going to be doing some support groups for exactly that subject, because it is, unfortunately, like when you made Aliyah, Kara. You know, my parents made Aliyah in 1970, and without a sense of community and a sense of family, they ended up going back. I've never forgiven them for that, but that's besides the point. I had to wait many years before I was able to make Aliyah. But It's so people don't realize, and I wish that Nefesh B'Nefesh and the Jewish Agency would think long and hard before they decide where they suggest to people, this is where you should possibly go to because of X, Y, and Z. And it's so many people have unsuccessful aliyahs because of it. And it in fact, we were just given a statistic this afternoon that since October the 7th, 200,000 Olim have left Israel.
Really?
Beginning of the war. 200,000. That's what Liami told
I
us.
would be surprised if that weren't true.
That was
it makes sense. I mean, psychological.
Have left Israel, or
they've left? They've either gone to Cyprus. He said Cyprus, Portugal, America. He gave a few countries of where people have gone back, migrated back to. Maybe it's a temporary migration and they're going to come back, but that's how many people have left the country so far. That's what the army said with the latest figures. It's shocking.
It is.
But upon saying that, Aliyah is up. So it kind of bounces. You can understand it's that kind of, it's this ambiguous life that people are leading. As you said, Kara, right at the very beginning, it's the ambiguous situation, especially now what we're experiencing in Israel. You know, we're probably full force at war again in a couple of days, if not quicker than that, you know, with what's been going on today. We had sirens again this morning here, you know. I was in a session with a client and all of them, she goes, siren. And she went into panic. I said, I'm sorry, I can't help you because my siren's going too. So, and I talked to her on the phone as I was going down to my mamad. But we're living constantly in that ambiguous world, so to speak.
Yeah. So, like, I'm sorry, but I can see the time, and I want to just wrap us up. I feel like so much important happened, and I'm very grateful to all of you for giving me an opportunity to think about these things again and to get to know you a little bit. I want to encourage you when you're on the Tikva line and you have clients. I want to encourage you to pay close attention to the hints toward the caller's ambiguous losses. I think it's easy to overlook them. And our job, I mean, my job as a chaplain, it's like bread and butter for me. But I think it's everyone's job to pay close attention to the micro, because the micro can dramatically affect the macro. So that's what I got for us today.
No, thank you, Kara. It was fascinating.
Thank you very much.
Really fascinating.
Well,
thank you.
Yasher Koach, Kara. And everyone.
Thanks for the opportunity, Leslie. All right, everybody, I'm out.
Thank you,
everyone. Bye. Bye.
And thank you, Kara. Thank you for your time and your wisdom.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.